Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversation together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And I've had a great time just going on this long road trip with my llama, I think is what it is.
That's so interesting because I've had a great time embodying a dark sorceress queen and destroying a hero over and over again. So, I'm glad that we're leaning into our strengths.
Yeah, we have a double whammy episode for you today at Geeks and Grounds, kind of consolidating since it has been a hectic time. As the saga continues with the construction of my house, and now Joel knows the just inherently broken internet that I've been working with for the last little bit of time. So we are combining what was going to be the bonus brew, talking about the Dark Queen. Is it Mortholme?
That's what yeah, that feels right.
Let's go with Dark Queen Mortholme, along with the beginning of our March official brew, Arco. I think it's actually kind of a nice segue talking about Dark Queen Mortholme in between Sorry We're Closed and moving into Arco. I think thematically there's some really interesting ties that we can talk about. But before we get into all of that, as always, if you haven't checked us out before, or if this is your first time or you need a reminder, we play games and we focus on typically about one game a month together in deeper discussion through these podcast episodes, newsletters, and a Discord community. So hit up geeksandgrounds.com if you would like to learn all about it. And we're going to head to the pastry case. Yes. This is our grab bag of topics, including industry news as well as other things we've been getting into, just to help enhance and expand upon our monthly selection. We're full humans. We don't just play one thing a month and leave it at that. Or maybe we do because we're tired. I don't know.
I turned 38 last week. I'm officially in my late 30s. Woo! And it's just one of those things. Just like, do I have the energy to stay up late and play a game? And sometimes the answer is yes, but not as much as it used to be.
I have learned to treasure a 11 o'clock bedtime, I will say, which is like really early for me. It's awesome. I remember, especially when we first started hanging out, I remember I was like, yeah, I went to bed at like 3 a.m. And I remember you were like, what?
Honestly, I envied you so much because you taught me the value of enjoying my time when I'm not at work. That longtime listeners will know I am now a nighttime coffee drinker so that I can stay up past 11.
Cheers.
So yes, I actually just had a cup. So I think there's something to be said for a reasonable bedtime, and there's something to be said for squeezing the juice out of every drop of non-work hour that I have at home.
My gosh. For real. I know. I will say, while I do appreciate that 11 a.m. bedtime, or 11 p.m., 11 a.m., really carrying the night over into the next morning, if you will. But I do like my sleep now, but especially on weeks like this where we have the Steam Next Fest going on, I know I got a little bit less sleep in the attempt to try and play as many demos as possible. Before we talk Next Fest, though, I would like to do a little rearranging and kick off the pastry case with our bonus brew. This was a really interesting one because I saw this on itch.io. Itch is another platform you can use to find games. It ranges from hobbyists to super professional studios and everything in between. And this game is only 20 minutes. So I thought it would be perfect to just have and enjoy, especially with the themes of relationships that we had in Sorry We're Closed, the themes of change in Sorry We're Closed as well, but also moving into Arco, a lot of these themes are pretty prevalent. The idea also of maybe holding on to something, never letting go. So for folks who haven't played, you can play it for free. I think you can also contribute funds if you enjoy it and you want to support the developer. But the description on the page on Itch is, you are the Dark Queen, the most powerful being of your entire universe. Your lair is breached upon by an aspiring hero, a pitiful thing, easily crushed. Except they keep coming back. a 20-minute anti-game about an unconventional relationship and the capacity for change. Joel, thoughts?
This is one of the best gaming experiences I have had in a very long time.
What? Oh my God, are you serious?
I loved this from
Yeah.
the opening moment
Mm-hmm.
until the closing moment. I thought
Mm-hmm.
like it was one of the best, just like 20 minutes. It had a message to deliver. I
Yeah.
love that message. I thought the movement and play experience was fun and dynamic. And for like a 20-minute itch game, like I could not believe how cool it felt. I if you have not tried this game out, I could not
Mhm.
more strongly recommend it. Dark Queen of Mortholme. It was just like
Wow.
so cool. So I'm eager to dig into the themes. I think you have us on a big anti-hero kick right now. Um, so I'm eager to talk about that in light of Sorry We're Closed and Arco. But man, yeah,
Mhm.
fully lows. What were your kind of first impressions?
Um, well, one of my first impressions was that the art, I think I'm a
Mhm.
sucker for pixel art. I
Same.
think this pixel art is really it looks simple, but it carries a lot within it. I think the detail, like there's like a reflection in the glass that you can see from because you're in this giant hall. The entire game takes place in the throne room of the queen, and I think one of the most striking things I noticed were you have these giant windows that take up the entire wall and the reflection that they have on the floor. And I thought that just looked so beautiful.
Oh.
Um, and I think what I loved most is this actually made me think of another favorite game of mine, which is In Stars and Time,
Hmm.
where you are heroes trapped in this time loop. I love a good time
Yeah.
loop. Like, I just give me anything with a time loop and I will be happy. And this had that same feeling, but
Mhm.
instead of being from the hero's perspective, you are taking on the role of this queen. And I don't know. I think there's something like deeply melancholy about it, but I guess to start getting into a bit of spoiler territory for a
Mhm.
20-minute game, um, I think the playing as this unchanging being who is being confronted with the possibility of perhaps needing to change or to perish. Um, that was just like it felt so vulnerable for some reason. Like this
That
game
is the
felt
right
incredibly
word.
vulnerable.
Yes, I could. That is such a perfect word, Jenny. Like, and it's something about like the vulnerability of the would-be villain with kind of the
Mm,
brashness and like lack. Like, I don't even know what the word is, but like there's a almost a terseness to the hero character
yeah.
that it. Yeah, that was it's such an interesting juxtaposition. Like,
Mhm,
if I could paint a bit of a picture here, like for those of you who have played any Souls-like games, Demon Souls, Dark
mhm,
Souls, Elden Ring, whatever, you can imagine the point where you get to a boss room, there's like a big fog door, and you walk through, and the boss is in the same place they always are, and they have the same entry dialogue they always have. And you realize, like with this game, I had never even thought about this.
mm,
The idea that, like, oh, this boss never leaves this room like in the reality of this world. They never get
right.
to leave their fog door. And the idea that you are playing as this queen, which by the way, what a beautiful like little mini
Oh
surprise for
my
me.
gosh.
Like
Yeah.
you're watching this throne room, you see this dark queen who looks kind of like Sauron from Lord of the Rings in the opening
Mhm,
scene, but
mhm.
with a beautiful cape, sitting on their throne, and the hero walks in, and I'm like holding the arrow key as thinking I'm the hero trying to walk to the right where the queen is, but nothing happens, and then I move the arrow to the left and it's like the queen stands up and starts walking, and I was just like, I started giggling. It was such a like, I didn't read the description, I guess, or like read it correctly, but like it was such a beautiful little surprise moment to be like,
Yeah.
oh, and here I go, I get to do this thing. But like
Mhm,
that moment of surprise mixed with this realization that like, oh, these bosses have no world outside of the singular room that they are stationed in, just waiting
mm,
for, the chosen hero to come in and fight them and fight them and fight them until they know your moves well enough that they can kill you. Like the
Yeah.
existential nature, like crisis that we watched the
Oh
queen
my
go through
gosh. Yeah.
as they are realizing this is incredible.
Oh my gosh. And like I think especially coming off of being a major like Duchess stan
Oh yeah.
essentially, I think this idea of also being defined by something else was really prevalent for me in Sorry We're Closed, and then playing this being the Dark Queen and how you're defined essentially by your relationship against the hero. Without the hero, you are just in this room by yourself doing nothing. and so, and the hero is what defines you, but also is ultimately what destroys you. It was just so good. Just,
I was thinking it was going to be like if for those of you who were our Marvel people, sorry Jenny, the
it's
first
okay.
Doctor Strange movie where like the way that they beat the bad guy is they get stuck in a time loop until the bad guy's like, I'm tired of killing you over and over and over again. I give up.
hmm
I thought that's what I was in for. And I was like, okay, well, like it's cool to play that story as a game, but yeah,
hmm
whatever. But then you get this line like pretty early on where the hero's like, oh, I got this from the gatehouse. And the queen is like, what gatehouse? Like, does not know the castle that she is stationed in. And it was
hmm
such a like my whole world flipped upside down moment for me where I was like, what would it be like if you were Melania in Elden Ring, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that life? Wild.
Yeah. And this idea of having a purpose and not even knowing anymore. Like, I felt like it's like you're given this thing that you must do, but you have no real impetus as to why you are pursuing this thing
Mm.
anymore. Which also really hit when I started playing Arco. This idea of what is your driving force? Like, what is your reason for doing this? It's like, what is
Oh,
your reason for being here in this throne room, for defeating the hero? For what end is this happening?
also a great tie back to Sorry We're Closed is like
hmm
exploring the motivations for characters is such a critical part of these
Yeah.
three now games. Like,
hmm
there was a moment I I went on like an emotional journey playing this game.
Yeah.
There's a moment, so like when you have like these really strong move sets as the Dark Queen, you kill the hero, but like eventually they start learning your moves and timing and they can start fighting back. And when you kill them, you at the beginning snap your finger and the body on the floor disappears.
hmm
Um, and then you go back to your throne until they show up again. And the moment where you don't snap your finger and you walk over and you bend down and touch the body and then it disappears,
hmm
I was like, what am I in for? Because that was still like relatively early in this 20-minute game. And then
hmm
eventually it's you lean down and you pick up the body and you hug it, and then the body disappears. And it's just like the subtle storytelling
Yeah.
along the way, absolutely fascinating to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, really, like, I agree. When I played this game, I was just surfing on itch, found it. I was like, hey, this seems like it's got some pretty good reviews. Let's check it out. And I agree with you. I think I have yet to play a game this condensed and this impactful. Like, I played this probably months ago. Like,
Mm,
I think I played this quite a bit, maybe even late last year,
mm.
before I was like, oh, I should bring this into Geeks and Grounds because I think this would be really valuable. And yeah, I just something about this game I have not been able to get out of my head, and it's incredible because it is so compact. Like, that's the only way I can use to describe it. It's a compact experience that has really stuck with me. Yeah, and I can't stop thinking about it.
There were two lines of dialogue that were like kind of gutting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
One was kind of the first time you make it to like phase two of your own form because you
Yeah.
died or like got low enough on your health. You say something like, I will not let you undo what I am. And there's
Mm-hmm.
something about that like fixed identity that was so like this is their entire existence, is to like get up and do the same 10 moves, maybe in
Mhm.
different orders over and over again. Like there's something like very like Toy Story sad to me about that.
Yeah.
And then later you get a line that's something like, you are the only one that's given an opportunity to change, like referring to the hero and how like they
Mhm.
get to grow, but like I am stuck with the same thing.
Mm.
Blah. Like it is like it's Andy like not playing with Woody anymore and feeling
Yeah.
like abandoned when he goes to Buzz. Like it's that feeling of like when you think about the little literal reality of some of these like objects or characters, it's like wow, like
Mm.
what a meaningful like existential crisis when you start really digging into that. It's just really
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Yeah. No, I think the Toy Story analogy is a really good one. I think that's super powerful. And also I start thinking about games kind of like one shot, or those games
Mm,
that are sort of fourth wall breaking. This one doesn't do that in the same way that those titles do, but there is something of us being like aware of that other side of the coin, other side of the curtain kind of feel that I really love just thematically in any storytelling that is present here too. I think oh, go ahead.
no. I was just like thinking about like that the moment where the hero's attacks stop hurting you.
Yeah.
Like it kind of serves a narrative purpose, but like basically it's still hard to hit the hero, but the hero says something like, I can tell that your heart's not in this, or something like that.
Hmm.
And I was just like, I, I'm even struggling to put into words how these moments made me feel,
Hmm.
because it's like it's a video game character, but who cares? But like building empathy for the big bad of a Souls like game feels inconceivable to me until this.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you enjoyed it because again, like I found it so impactful. And there was a point where I was like, oh, I hope it's not just me feeling like this is amazing and then everyone else plays it. And it's like, it's all right. That's fine.
There's
So
something there. And that
yeah.
at the end, the hero's like, it's too hard. Like, I'm giving up, essentially.
Hmm.
And then it's just you, the queen, in your throne room. Like, I'm thinking about all the bosses in the
Hmm.
recent Elden Ring DLC that I gave up on. That it's like they're just sitting
They're
behind their
just
fog
waiting.
door.
Oh
I'll
my
and they'll
gosh.
never get to progress.
Yeah. I think I really like what you brought up about like the fixed mindset because that's something I've been thinking a lot lately about like fixed mindset, fixed identity, and this idea of resilience
Mm,
and persistence and determination, especially because, you know, the world is in a really bad place right now, particularly in the US, if anyone's watched the news. And I think it's really easy to fall into a like, well, this is how it's going to happen. This is the ultimate, like, not how it's meant to be, but like this is ultimately what's going to be. And this idea of change and being willing to persist through, or like, despite feeling like this is going to be the same forever, finding change. I think just that's also what's really resonating with me about this game.
mm. Oh, the resistance to change. And then like you start getting little like peaks of dialogue where it's like
Hmm.
clear that they're not satisfied with who they are either.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yet they can't like the only way for them to change is to die. What?
yeah. Which I was like, oh my God, Angels and Demons. Sorry, we're closed. Like,
Mm.
oh my God. Um,
Oh,
but
that's
that's
perfect.
that's like, death. That's it's a symbolic death, right? Because it's like maybe this version of you will die, but hopefully in its place that new version will come up, right? And so, yeah, it's just
What?
like so heartbreaking, but you just want so badly for that character to just see like take the leap, like trust yourself, trust that perhaps something better could be there for you. um yeah.
Mm. So good. Thank you for finding this. This is such a
Yeah.
great gaming experience. It's like this is exactly the thing that like Geeks and Grounds makes me excited for.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. And yeah, I hope anyone else who found the opportunity, the time to play this, if you haven't, I highly recommend, even if you've heard, like, you can hear the premise, but I think the act of playing it is done so impactfully that
Hmm.
just take the 20 minutes, play it. It's
Hmm.
free. Um, it's really powerful stuff.
And it feels very cool to go into your phase two and have these very,
Oh
very cool, powerful moves to
Oh
use.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that's the bonus brew. Kind of for like last month. Just as a heads up, we won't have an official bonus brew podcast for March. That's because at the end of April, we're going to have a big one for Okami. So that is like the big bonus brew. If you want to just pick away at it for the next 2 months, we will have guests joining us to talk
Woohoo.
about it. I just have to confirm that they're available, but I'm pretty sure they said that they're interested in participating. It's just figuring out the timing. So I will wait to announce them, but I'm very excited. Um, and I think it's time to talk about Steam Next Fest as we close out the pastry case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Full disclosure to the community, because my birthday was last week, I had a social engagement every single night and didn't get to play any demos. I did watch some previews. I'll talk about a few that I was excited about, but since Jenny did get to play some demos, I'd love to hear what you were excited about. What didn't excite you? Like, tell us about your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I won't there with so many demos. I think I'll focus on the ones that excited me the most, or at least the ones that have stuck with me a little bit more. Even though they may not have been the best demos, they're the ones that I'm thinking about still. Um, the first is, I think these are in alphabetical order, just to try and like be a little unbiased because they all kind of were so different. The first was called Bundle of Joy. This one, what I do is my thing is I scroll through every single demo, and I had never heard of this, never heard of the developer. It looked super rough, but they sold me on like WarioWare style mini games. I love a good WarioWare inspired anything, so I played it, and basically it's WarioWare meets the challenges of having a new baby. Each mini game has to do with taking care of your kid, whether it's like changing their diaper, washing their hair, trying to feed them. And what I thought was the extra charming and sort of the extra heart that this was not that made this memorable, um, was the fact that interspersed between the mini games and sort of throughout the day, you are introduced to a story of these two new parents who have this baby during the pandemic. And it's really vulnerable and reflective. And I think this developer made this game based on the experience of having a
Mm.
baby in the pandemic. Um, and honestly, reading it, I don't have a kid, but just even reading some of the uncertainties that they felt from early COVID days was like, it just really brought me back. And I thought it was really simple writing, but really impactful writing. And while the controls were a little bit wonky, again, not the most polished game, it still was so memorable.
Mm.
It's one that I would definitely keep an eye out. And if the demo's available, I'd still play it. Recommend
Awesome.
folks play it. Um, I'll go through a little faster through the others. Centum. Okay. This, I feel like you would maybe dig this, Joel. You should try this game. It's like psychological horror escape room meets weird fantasy setting, some gore. You're waxing philosophic with Cthulhu like entities and other spectral beings. And I have no idea what is happening, but I loved it.
I'm watching the trailer for this right now, and this is the most unhinged thing I have seen in a very long time. Maybe
It's
since Sorry We're Closed in last summer's
oh
Steam Next
hey, oh
Fest.
my gosh. Yeah, you don't trust the narrator, you don't trust yourself. I think there's a layer of they have, I forget what it's called, but it's like when your game has its own OS, essentially, kind of like One Shot. Again, it's like referring to that. So like when you open up the demo, it actually opens up as like a computer screen OS, and then you're clicking on files, and you open one of the files, and that puts you in the prison cell that you're in, essentially. And then you're trying to escape it. You escape the app, and like more things happen. It's just
Wild.
my kind of thrill, you know?
Yes.
This next one you have as well, so I'll let you talk about this next one.
I didn't get to play it, but I got to. I spent more time watching the trailer and did like
Mm-hmm.
some guided overviews. But Promise Mascot Agency, I know like this game keeps coming up in conversation.
Yeah.
I finally watched like an overview and deep dive on the game as it's
Mm-hmm.
been released so far. My God, this looks like so much fun. It's again,
Mm-hmm.
it's similar like Yakuza, like you're a former Yakuza gang member, you've opened up this mascot agency, hijinks ensue. It just looks so funny and fun. Like it,
Yeah.
how was the play experience?
I really loved it. Like, I think there's this really good blend of, you have this open world that you get to drive around. You're basically in a truck, you're not running around. So you're driving around this open world. There's a VN sort of narrative component to it. And then there are these, um, I guess, situations where your mascots are at events, and you have to essentially quick time, not quick time, sort of react quickly to sort of what's going on, and determine in a deck card based sort of
Mm.
manner, like the strategy to make sure they get out of that situation, uh with respect and reputability intact.
The most important things for mascots: respect
Right.
and reputability.
Right. But okay, like when we say these mascots are unhinged, I'm thinking like, you have the severed thumb, which is on the key art, who's like definitely got a thirst for blood for sure. You have really cute ones like this sort of cemetery ghost spirit that just like wants to bring tours around. And then you have like a cat that's a yam mascot, like
Oh,
the sweet potato yams. But the cat's secret desire, or not so secret desire, is to become like an adult video mascot. So
okay.
you have these, like, it's definitely not for the kids. You know what I mean? This is like a grown up mascot game. It's great.
I'm
Yeah.
always looking for grown-up mascot games.
Yeah.
This is finally meeting this need that I've been feeling for a long time.
It's a niche but important audience, and I'm glad that it's finally being served.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess, did you want to share maybe one of the others that you were looking at, even
Yeah.
though you didn't maybe get to play it?
The other video I saw that I was most excited about was Dark Deity 2. I did not play
Mm-hmm.
Dark Deity 1, but this is kind of a Fire Emblem style strategy game, pixel art. Like your sprites are moving around. You have squares that you can use to attack and use different types of magic, long range, short range attacks. I got very into that last Fire Emblem game,
Oh
the Three
yeah.
Houses. And so I've been like feeling the urge to have another one of those experiences. And this looks like it could deliver on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it matches with like, key art, dialogue, and exchanges, very old school Fire Emblem style. So I'm pretty excited for that. It's one that I would definitely pick up once it comes out.
The animation looks really, like, some of the battle and combat animations look really good.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some on the Steam page, and yeah, they look great.
Gotta love it. And I
Yeah.
love the kind of like extreme. I have these voices that I do in my head for Fire Emblem games where it's
Uh-huh.
like, especially like the old ones where they didn't have voice actors. And it's just like very fun for me to imagine what this key art character sounds like. And I find myself reading the words out loud, like in the
Yes.
voice. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Oh,
think
that's
it's serving.
perfect.
How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, this looks great. I also have been craving, like, just, I've been on an RPG kick well, all my life,
Yeah.
but I've been really I've been really craving RPGs. So this, actually, I hadn't seen this one, and I'm wishlisting it right now.
Yes.
Um Going in with more pixel art, I talked about Camper Van a little bit in the Discord, which was like a decorating, essentially a 3D decorating game. Whisper of the House is a essentially pixel art version of a decorating game.
Oh.
I really love the premise because instead of like decorating your house over a period of years, which a lot of games kind of adopted that timeline so that you can decorate different things. You are new to town and you provide a move-in service. So like you go to people's houses and help move them in. Yeah, and so it's like a wonderful way to set up the reason why you would decorate so many different places. Um, I will flag that apparently the demo had something a little bit not so cozy. I did not play the version of the demo that had this. I just saw in the Steam community forums, like, there was some stuff where it was like you could see the back sort of back lives or like the inside secret lives of people, and like some of them were not very appropriate, and I couldn't see like what it was. I'm gonna have to check and see, but there's some darkness to this game perhaps that I'm
Yeah.
not sure of like what it is, because again, by the time I got to the demo, the devs had posted a thing about how they had removed the upsetting content. I'm like, what could it have been? um but what I
I
did play was
was
great.
I was so sure I knew what I was in for with this game until
Yeah.
I finished watching this trailer, and there's like some sort of magic thing happening and
Oh,
maybe like a dark god creature of some kind. So
yeah. See, and I think I don't know if that's what was removed or if it was something else, but I think there was some, I think just marketing wise there probably wasn't good expectation
mhm.
setting for folks, and so they're probably having to like revamp some of their marketing, I would assume, rather than change the whole game. But for the demo purposes, I think they said whatever it was that people were complaining about and like mentioning
Mm.
that was like inappropriate, they removed it. So I mean, good on the devs for being responsive
Yeah.
and just like taking care of it. I will say, all of that aside, I loved the gameplay. It was just super straightforward. You click on the little robot, it gives you a furniture piece, you put it in the house, and you make a cute space. I
You
am
know
simple.
what it's
That's what
giving
I do.
me is like Earthbound. It looks like if you
Mm.
were a mover in the Earthbound games. That's
Oh
kind
my
of
gosh,
the feel that
cute.
I'm looking at here.
Yeah, it's super cute. Whoever did the pixel like assets, the pixel art, really good job. And then the last one that I loved, and then I'll let you share your last one, is Wheel World. Um, I had not heard of this game really beforehand. Admit I knew of it, but I hadn't like heard anyone talking about it. I hadn't seen anything. So this one really took me a little bit by surprise. Especially because it's also a biking game and a
Yeah.
racing game, which are two things I would not ever say are in my like top 10 interests. But you play this biker who pairs up with a spirit, and you have to like save the spirit world by biking to all of these shrines. Um, and it felt so good. It felt so good to play.
It looks
And
smooth.
it was great. I was honestly shocked. I don't like racing games, and I'm not a huge fan of like primarily moving around on sounds weird, on wheels. Like
Yeah.
games that have skateboarding, roller skating, biking often don't feel good to me.
Mhm.
This felt really good.
It kind of has an illustrative style similar to like Sable, for those of you that are like
Yes.
looking for something similar to that style.
Yeah.
Cool color palette, interesting kind of matte animation art style. Very cool.
Yeah. Really, really fun. And that one, I believe, yeah, I believe the demo is still out for that one as well. So I would say give it a shot.
You know, it's going through the rest of the day today, so maybe I'll have some time tonight that I can hop in at least to that one. That does look
Yeah.
very, very fun.
Yeah, I think you would like it. It felt really neat. They did an incredible job with the sound effects of like pedaling on the sort of the dirt gravel road. It just sounded so good. I was like, I want to go ride a bike now. Like I want to go on an outdoor bike adventure. And that's honestly maybe one of the highest compliments I could give the demo, is that it made me want to
Damn.
ride a bike. So uh
It made Jenny want to learn how to ride a bike. That's very
yeah, for the
exciting.
first time in
For
my
the
life.
first time ever. Oh man. Last game on my list, in terms of, again, videos that I watched, is Haste: Broken Worlds. Looks like a 3D Sonic style speed adventure. Uh, and it's trying to it's more about how you land to maintain the momentum of the game. So I think it's a pretty interesting twist on a Sonic style speedy experience. I am always looking for something that's going to recapture the magic of Sonic 2 for me, or even Sonic Adventure for Dreamcast. And I've not quite been able to recapture that. So I don't know. This looks like it might fit the bill. It looks just different enough that I would maybe really vibe with it. So would recommend checking that one out.
Yeah. And that one, I was trying to get to it, and I then got distracted by playing Whisper of the House far longer than I thought I would. And so I'm hoping to catch it before the demos are removed. Um, cool. Well, for notable releases this week, in case you're like, I don't want a demo, I want full game, we have 2 Point Museum and Everhood 2. 2 Point Museum, I've been a fan of the 2 Point series for like the better part of a decade now. I feel like maybe longer. I don't want to
Whoa.
date myself. They had like 2 Point Hospital, 2 Point Campus. So this is like the same franchise.
Mm.
If you ever played like the roller coaster tycoons, or sort of those sim games where you have to manage, insert like, public thing here, this is basically that. So you're making museums. They have really wacky, silly themes, like the paranormal museum. They have an aquarium, which is as wacky, but like they have wacky themed things for it. And I have been playing it. It feels so good to play.
Fun.
So if you're looking for like a simulation that's a bit silly, that has been my go-to for the last probably week and a half, for just like let my brain zone out after work. Cause it's just like happy, don't have to think too hard. You see number go up and it feels nice.
Love it.
Yeah. And Everhood 2, this is a sequel to a cult classic, like rhythm RPG game. I don't know. Maybe not RPG. I wouldn't classify it as that, but it's like a rhythm game with narrative elements. I have tried playing Everhood, and I will admit I have bounced off every time because it just got too hard. But I really want to play it. And so one of these days I'm going to give it another try. But for folks who have tried it and loved it, Everhood 2 is coming out this week. And that is it for the pastry case. Again, head to geeksandgrounds.com to sign up for the newsletter, for all of the links to our social channels and Discord. And that is that. It's time for the monthly brew, Arco. And today, as always, we're going to be talking about a specific section of the game. Since it's the first episode in our series about Arco, we're starting on Act 1 and Act 2, and we will be spoiling everything in Act 1 and Act 2. So if you are trying to avoid spoilers, I would say pause right here, go play the game, and then you can come back. Or, as always, have a listen, and we'll prime you for your experience when you play. But yeah, Arco.
So the Steam page for this, let me just read this real quick.
Yeah.
A Mesoamerican fantasy RPG that blends turn-based and real-time combat, explore the world through 3 handcrafted stories forged in bloodshed, laced with magic, and united by revenge. So this is from Frantic, Max Cahill, Bibiki, Fair, and Panic, the publisher. No idea if I pronounced any of those correctly. Apologies if I did not. I did not know what I was in for with this game. And there, at the beginning, like one of the first things that happens, like you're a little boy in a village and you're about to go, the whole village is about to go to a sacred tree and leave an offering. It's like this kind of like, okay, wholesome start. And you're given a choice pretty early on to bring back a yarrow leaf, and you can choose to bring something that's like doesn't have any black tar on it, and just like a clean yarrow leaf, or both the clean yarrow leaf and the black yarrow leaf. And early in the game, you're given a choice to make with what you're going to do with this yarrow leaf, and I chose to keep it, which you're advised not to do. And immediately it's like, you are feeling guilty about this. And I was like, I am? Yes, you're feeling. I was like, I just thought I was collecting items. But they tell you once you make the guilty choice, like your decisions are going to make you carry a weight around. You might say you will be haunted by your decisions. And they leaned heavy into that metaphor.
Oh, yes. Most definitely.
So, broadly speaking, like gameplay wise, you're going to be making your way through this very like flat pixelated world. It's almost like, it reminds me of Oregon Trail, like the illustrative style, like way more colorful and vibrant, obviously.
Yeah.
But the combat is, they mentioned like turn-based and like action. You're trying to not get hit by the bullets of the people that are shooting at you while navigating around to get to certain locations or fight back. But the longer you take, the more likely it is that your past decisions will haunt you in the form of literal ghosts that will, like, you can't take your time to think about these fighting puzzles because ghosts are coming after you during that like planning phase. I was shocked. I was shocked from the beginning. It was like totally not what I was expecting. And I've like found a good rhythm with it. I'm really enjoying the experience, but like everything about this game has been a surprise.
Yeah. I will say, I think I had less of a surprise in jumping in because I had heard of this game. I had like word around the street. Everyone was talking about it in terms of like, hey, this is the game that you got to play. This is the game that's like really good. I had played the demo before. And so I knew a little bit more of what I was getting into. In theory, I do agree. Once you really get in there, because the demo that I played was at like a PAX West, I think, and it was essentially that tutorial where you're like, essentially, it's a good chunk of like Act One. Moving into like the full game, there is so much depth that I wasn't anticipating, and so much opportunity to deviate from the path and explore, that yeah, I've been really pleasantly surprised. I will say though, when I started this game, it took me a long time to find the rhythm. I have it now and I'm digging it now. The tutorial, when you're, I think, young Tico, and your dad's like, let me teach you how to defend yourself, or like whatever.
Dodge bullets and
Dodge
curve your
bullets.
path.
That curve moment took me an embarrassing number of tries and an embarrassing amount of time. I don't remember exactly, but I remember looking at the clock and thinking, I might have to text Joel and say, we can't play this game because I don't know if I can finish the tutorial. So bad.
I played that tutorial for about 5 minutes before I went into the accessibility features and turned on infinite dynamite and skip battles. And that has made this such a pleasant gaming experience for me, because it kind of like what I'm, just so that everyone knows, like the way I'm going to be playing through this full accessibility is I'm going to play through it once without using like the infinite dynamite. Then I'm going to play through it with dynamite if I can't beat that battle. And then I'm just going to skip it because the battles are pretty, I'm sure they would be more interesting for me if I had unlimited time to plan. But because the ghosts are pressuring me, like I can't enjoy the puzzle element of it. And to me, that's just like a trade-off. It's like, well, that's fine. Like I'll try it out a couple times, and if I can't do it, I'm just going to skip the battle. And they let you do that, and that's amazing. So
yeah.
Or like, I don't want to fight lizards again. I'm going to skip this battle.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I really appreciate that they added that, because I think initially when I was playing, that wasn't an option. The accessibility stuff, they added it post-launch. So like huge kudos to the developers for seeing where their community was at and where the players were at and providing those options. Because I think ultimately this story is one that I am finding really engaging, or more of this world, because like the story is relatively light, but I think it implies more than what is actually provided through the narrative. And I think the implications of this story are what really grips me about this game. But I guess just to like hop, do you want to just hop in?
Let's get into the story.
Started talking about the act one. So you
Hmm.
mentioned already we play as a teenager. Our family, we are at getting ready to go to the sacred tree to provide some offerings. Basically, the the company of your family has stopped because of the presence of these newcomers that are near the sacred tree that pose a threat. Um, and what's really fascinating, I think, is this is a game that is set in the sort of fantastical frontier era, like North America Western sort of scenario. And you are not playing the like cowboys of this, you're playing the native population.
Hmm.
And I think that for me is what's from the jump really interesting about this game. We are playing from the perspective of people who are like here, they are native to this area, and you are experiencing the like colonization of your land. And this perspective, at least from this first act one, is of this child who doesn't know who the newcomers are, where they're from. We just know we are meant to stay away because they are dangerous.
I also love the capital N in newcomers. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're referring to them as the capital N newcomers. And I think that is like such a powerful descriptor
Yeah.
of like the colonial like the colonization experience is like we are here. We're instantiated here. My family goes back here generation after generation. And it's not about like these are the Europeans or the whatever. It's these are the newcomers. These are people who are not from here, and like we don't even super care where they're from in this
Mm-hmm.
context. And I we mentioned this earlier on. Like you find this yarrow leaf, and some of it has black goop on it. Black goop turns out to be oil, and
Mm-hmm.
so you're immediately steeped in like there is like we now know like there's some economic thing that's happening here.
Yep.
There's going to be these peoples that are displaced here, and like it is a and it's one of the very first things that happens in this game is this yarrow leaf thing, and it's just something
Mm-hmm.
that's like really sets the tone and the expectation for what you are going to be in for the whole rest of this experience.
Yeah. And I think I like what you mean about like there's displacement happening even in this small scale of we wanted to go to this location, yet we cannot because of the presence of these newcomers. Like
Hmm.
even in the most subtle of ways, you're not starting with like they've infiltrated my town. It's they have already changed and caused us to adapt and reorient how we are navigating our own space that we have gone through for generations, like you said.
Yeah. I also because I accidentally did this guilt producing thing, and I kind of liked playing differently and Sorry We're Closed. I've decided I'm going to lean into the guilty sin eater
Ooh,
experiences throughout this whole game. So I'm going to be playing the role of the like I'm taking on the sins of the world to,
wow.
fight off whatever is going on here. I'm just going to lean into that. So,
That's amazing. I feel like I tried to not, and yet,
and
and
yet,
yet, I still am carrying a lot more guilt than I thought I would going through this playthrough.
so this is interesting. Like in the opening of the game,
Mhm.
you have the many little fetch quests. You're going to find a little offering to bring to the tree. In the middle of the night, you are given the opportunity to kind of sneak away and go to the
Mhm.
sacred tree at night. Did you choose to do that?
Absolutely, yes.
Of course. And it feels like such a like kid thing to do or like a teenager
Mhm.
thing to do. And exactly the kind of decision that sets a person off on a quest or on a journey
Mhm.
in any big story that starts with a teenager or a kid. Like it just
Yep.
felt like it captured something for me, like that Steven
Mhm.
Spielberg, like Goonies, like kids made a decision and now the whole rest of this experience is going to be them dealing with the consequences of this one thing.
Mhm.
uh what was your experience with that like?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I thought as well, where, it's this kid doing what kids do, which is sort of defy your parents, and it's like if you've been to the sacred tree, you've been safe there before. It's like, why wouldn't this kid say, you know what, I'm gonna go and just investigate? Um, I think also if you listen, I don't know if it happens only if you listen all the way through, but the evening before you have this like story time campfire moment with your grandfather, who talks about the like story of the sacred tree and how originally the sacred tree was a hunter, I think
Mm-hmm.
Io hunter,
IO, right?
and basically this woman was turned into a tree because she had sort of this hubris and obsession about taking everything and sort of being the best hunter, which caused her to take more than what was needed. And so you have this like story that you were told, and I think that's why my character said they woke up in the middle of the night, is because they were having a dream about the sacred tree and the
Mm-hmm.
hunter. But yeah, you go to the sacred tree, you can provide the tree with an offering. Earlier you could have collected a rattle if you would like. Did you end up collecting the rattle?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I offered the rattle to the tree, but unfortunately, newcomers show up. And you can immediately tell these newcomers, they are arguing, they have guns. This is not good news. And they are very willing to attack a child. So,
This is like, I think, a really interesting potential metaphor moment. Like, number one, like
mhm,
the tree, Io, the name of this character, your people, your tribe, whatever,
mhm,
are called the Ios people. Like, this is part of your identity, right? It's not just like a site that you visit.
mhm,
And there's something really interesting about that. There's also something very interesting about the consequence of like minority peoples or minoritized peoples being so much more extreme than those who are
mhm,
in positions of power, like cultural authority. That like the kid just woke up in the middle of the night, went to the tree, and now their life is in jeopardy. And we
mhm,
still obviously see that so much in our world today, where minoritized people are, they make decisions that would not at all impact the people groups that are in positions of power or their kids.
mm,
And yet when this particular people group does, well, now your
yeah.
life is in jeopardy. And there was something about that that felt very poignant in this moment.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that, but I really like the tie you made there because that's definitely true. Um, what I didn't realize about this section of the game too is that this is a battle that you are not meant to win.
Oh,
I
whoops.
I uh basically, as you try to escape the tree, um you have the opportunity to fight back, but ultimately this act ends with you sort of not, you know you don't know if you make it, you don't know what happens. The screen, I think, goes black, and you hear your family shouting that you're under attack. And so, I assume basically this whole family are done for at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember like what that experience is like for me. It's something about
Hmm.
like the town's under attack. uh I can't remember the specifics. I'm sorry, but yeah,
Yeah.
the implication is pretty clearly that your village has been destroyed by the time you get back there.
Hmm.
And again, like this is an archetypal story moment, right?
Yep.
And something very poignant about this. I had a strange thing where like I thought I gave the sacrifice to the tree, but then later it says that I didn't give the sacrifice to the tree. And
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was because of the attack, but did you get that, or did you successfully give the artifact?
I did successfully get, because I got like this thing that was like, we had good luck that year or something like
Yeah, mine
that.
said we didn't have good luck that year.
Oh my
Like
God.
all kinds of stuff happened, but like I thought I gave the rattle over.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Bummer.
Um, so that was act one, which I'm just like, that is a jam-packed act one. Like,
Yeah.
really starts us off fast. Act two, we seem to go through a time skip of sorts.
Hmm.
We don't
Hmm.
know how long it's been. Where it says we're deep in Io country, so we're in the same area. It seems about the same time period, but like we're just uncertain. And I think that was like the biggest feeling for me that started with Act Two is we were starting with like a different character. We're now this person named Tizo, um, and you don't know exactly like what's going on. And this feeling of uncertainty was like really fun for me, honestly.
I didn't feel that uncertainty personally. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of walked in thinking like, oh, I'm just the old grizzled person who's living with the
Ah,
decisions that they made as a child. And
interesting. I
maybe because I
totally
was
was like
playing, I think it was maybe because I was playing like this guilt run. I'm doing
Yeah, yeah.
the guilt run. That like the second you see him show up to this little town and he's like
Mhm.
very gruff with everybody's like, oh yeah, that's me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
worn down
interesting.
after my childhood, and that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I assumed this was a totally different character, and
Mm,
so I was just like, "Who is this guy?" Like, we know he's older, and that's why I was just like, "I don't know if this is in the same generation. Is this someone who is like looking for the family?" For I didn't know exactly where to place it, and
mm,
I guess spoiler later, you do find out it is um, Tico, Tico.
yeah, sure.
But so he's going by Tizo now, so a
Tizo,
slightly different
right.
name. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
You're this very gruff traveler, right? Like you
mhm.
show up into town and it's like it has that Western feel, but it also doesn't, because you're walking into the town that in a lot of like American Westerns are like you're in danger, but instead like you are the danger. You're going into what seems like a pretty cool community of people that
Mhm.
are just like going along and getting along. And you there's a bit of skepticism about who you are as a person coming into this
Mhm.
space, even though like you're probably closer tied to these people than anything else. But the weight of the years has kind of altered you to the point that like you are othered. And I thought that was a
Yes.
really interesting perspective to take on here.
Yeah, for sure. I think what was really interesting is you are looking for someone though. You're looking for this person named Yorka, who is a longtime old friend, and so you're there are opportunities where you can try to like endear yourself to the villagers, which I took, and it was very funny. But yeah, you are this very grizzled, grumpy person, and everyone kind of like plays off of that when they talk to you. Um, you have the opportunity essentially to go take care of some lizards for a nearby house of folks. There's lizards that's causing trouble, I
Classic
guess,
lizards.
classic lizards. Um, and so you have the opportunity to do what I think is one of my favorite things in this game, and that's traverse the map. And like you have this overworld map and nodes that you get to go through. And I think just the way that they've navigated like setting up exploration in this game is very
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah.
Um, when oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like you have this written down in the
Uh-huh.
notes here that you at one point you get to go to a shrine to Yoza, and
Yes.
you get like what I would consider to be one of the hardest lines in all of fiction.
Yep.
There's not enough time to pray for all the dead you have to mourn.
Yeah.
God damn, that is just a tough line.
It is. And it's heartbreaking because it's like this person, whatever, like they have lost a lot, and you probably realize like they've probably taken a lot too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, really good lines here. You get rid of the lizards. I think you can I ran across some poachers
Hmm.
that
Yep.
I chose to engage with, and we fought and I killed them.
Yep.
Which I don't know if that weighed on my soul, but I feel like it probably did. I'm
This
not
like
entirely sure.
it's interesting, right? Like killing is not necessarily it seems like morally neutral. Like the
Yeah.
fact that you are murdering dozens and dozens of people is not inherently a bad thing. Like there, number one, there's no diplomacy route here, right? Like there's
No.
no dialogue in any of these encounters that gets you out of a fight. It's like, no, you're here, you're fighting. Like unless
Yeah.
you avoid it
Yeah,
altogether.
it's like the only way you can avoid fighting is avoiding that area and like finding a different way around, it seems. And
Hmm.
it's weird because there is this guilt mechanic and there isn't like an indicator of how guilty you feel. Which and so I think because like I didn't get the guilt notification with the RO,
Mm,
I got it later and I forget exactly what happened, but I feel like there are opportunities and things that happen where they tell me like, oh, you have something that weighed on your soul. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, I get it. But then like you said, we do these battles and I'm murdering a bunch of people, and those aren't in game world weighing on my soul, but as a player I'm like,
yeah.
that feels not good.
It feels not good. And like some of these people, it's like, well, what are the conditions they're living in? Like these monks are doing this thing, or this group of people who like do live around here and they just are trying to get by, that I'm just walking into a cave and murdering.
Mhm.
Versus, like, as you progress through this game, you're going to encounter like true baddies that
Mhm.
you got to clean up. And it's just like, I bet I killed over 100 people in the couple hours that I was playing
Oh
this
my
game
god.
easily. And
Yeah.
like, I'm just chucking dynamite at them. So it's like the
Oh
most
my gosh, yeah.
vulnerable, like, or the most like exposed way to be murdering people.
Wow. But yeah, as you're exploring, you get rid of the lizards. You see poachers. Um, you kill them because they're poaching on land that's not theirs. And when you return to the village to try and like meet up with Yorka finally, because you've killed all this time and these people, you find that Yorka and his family and the whole village are slaughtered essentially. Someone has come and razed the village to the ground. You do find Yorka's grandson, I believe
Hmm.
Ko.
Hmm.
You find some newcomer boot tracks, and you find a Kanak necklace. What I thought was really interesting is as you find these clues as to who may have been the source of this horrible damage, you make the note that like anyone could have been wearing the newcomer boots. Like it couldn't have. It isn't 100% newcomer,
Hmm.
uh, because you are wearing some newcomer clothes. And so, what I loved about that little thought is it showed how embedded in the time that the newcomers have shown up, how they have already become embedded in the life of everyone who lives in this area.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And like the fact that you are skeptical of the connects who are also indigenous people groups is like,
Hmm.
this is not just like an us, like it's an us versus them, but every people group seems to be a potential them.
Hmm.
And it kind of shows how maybe your lack of community, how isolated you are as a person,
Yeah.
kind of makes everyone a potential threat to you. And that is just a sad way to be as an older person traveling around, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, it made me wonder because we have like I don't think we got definitive information. Like I didn't know if Yorka was another one of the Ios people, for example, and if that's where that connection lay and like why they were friends. But yeah, I realized it was like I don't think we've heard of our character connecting with other Ios people, and that was something I noted when I was playing.
Yeah. But it's cool because even though you don't have those anchors, the first thing you do is you find this little boy and you try
Yep.
to get him to the next village and like find
Yep.
people that can take care of him. And then there's a person that wants to travel with you and bring their donkey. And like, it's fascinating that though you're this loner character, the second you like are a grown up and we meet this person, you are constantly picking up people along the way. And there's
Hmm.
something about that feels very like there's something in the human essence that needs this connection.
Yeah.
Even though you're this gruff, terse old dude, like, I don't know, there's something about that that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's interesting because again, a character solo is fine, but I think having other characters to foil off of one another
Hmm.
and really learn, like I think that's always infinitely more interesting. And so yeah, it was great because you do meet a few other really interesting folks who are going the same direction as you and want to join along. I
Yeah.
think what's really interesting is at this point you have the opportunity to kind of explore, and one of my most vivid memories was exploring two different areas. One was this like cave on a mountain
Hmm.
sort of
Yeah, yeah,
hill,
yeah.
and I think you get the option and you start and you overhear folks talking and you're pretty sure they're bandits, but you're not entirely sure if they're the bandits you're looking for, and you have the opportunity to either go in and confront them or just head out. And I went in and confronted them.
Yep.
Did you do the same?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're doing the guilt
I'm
run.
doing the
So
guilt run.
I didn't even mean to do the guilt run. I think at that point I was like, maybe at some point the game will give us an opportunity to talk, and it never does.
I think I had that exact. I think that was also my realization moment that like
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the moment to ever be curious about the people that I'm interacting with. If I
Yeah.
am concerned someone is a baddie, I'm going to be murdering them is kind of the vibe.
Mhm.
Like you're on
Mhm.
this kind of mystery exploration trying to figure out who destroyed this village. You go talk to monks, you find bandits, you go into this
Mhm.
cave, and you're constantly like picking up little clues along the way for who might have been responsible for this.
Right.
But it is very much a like shoot first and don't ask questions. Just pick up what you find after you've killed everyone and see if you can piece together the next clue.
Yeah, and like 9 times out of 10, you find out it wasn't the people that you targeted. And I think that for me has been the most like hard to grapple with element of the story is I want to be curious, I want to explore and engage, but at the same time, every time I do, I end up murdering people, and then it turns out they weren't like the princess was in another castle. I didn't need to do all of that, and it's like a really I find it just like kind of emotionally not like super challenging. I'm not like losing sleep over it, but it is
Mhm.
like emotionally challenging as a player to like have a character that's so gung ho about getting the answers that he wants that he's willing to do anything too far in advance, honestly, to try and get those answers.
I that is so interesting. And like as you're piecing together clues and you go talk to monks and you get more clues and it's time to go talk to the connects, there's a moment when you get to the connects who like are
Mhm.
an indigenous group of people that live in the forest, like deep forest. They're the place they live looks amazing.
It's
Like
beautiful.
it's like a castle town. Like I don't even know what to compare it to. Like if you've seen like
Mhm.
Incan or Mayan statues and relics, like it's kind of like those ruins. But it's you see it in all of its glory, and it's colorful and vibrant, and the
Yeah.
people look very cool. And you walk in, and before you can talk to like the leader of these people, you're required to fight someone, and it's just like, okay, well, this is what I'm here to do. I'm gonna huck some dynamite at this dude until I can talk to the leader. But it's interesting because once you do have this interaction with the Connect people,
Mhm.
you are it's the first time, in my opinion, that like you are finally like building solidarity with an entire people group, and
Yeah.
like they're gonna help you along the way. They agree that like essentially the redcoats and the newcomers are like your bad guys that you're going to be going after, and they're like,
Mhm.
take my guy here, like you're gonna be having a good time fighting the baddies, so here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, specifically you meet what is it? Lady like two
I don't know if
what
it's
is it?
tuck swan or something like that.
Yeah. And oh, Lady Two Skies. She's the one who like is in charge
Mm,
of the castle. And I think what's really interesting is there's a line in there that I wrote down that your character says about how they're gaudy nobles on gaudy thrones. I think it's also notable that you initially go to the Connect Palace thinking that they are in allegiance with the Red Company. And so I don't know. I think there's this interesting tension of you going there to kill them and then them saying, no, these are actually our enemies, which made me really interested in like their history and why are the others perceiving them as to be allies with the
hmm
Red Company if they're mortal enemies. They also mention, and you learn a little bit about why they might be sort of in cahoots with the Red Company because I think a brother of the queen got like kidnapped,
right,
and
yep.
essentially is being raised in sort of like a mission school format where he is being like embedded in newcomer culture. He's given a newcomer name. Like, yeah. And this is like drawn directly from like US history, especially
Hmm.
where native populations were put into schools and told to essentially erase any like memory, erase any experience of their culture, but to only like engage with like white culture, essentially sort of.
And
Uh,
if you haven't heard of these things, you should look them up. It's important to know this history because,
yes.
like, I think it's even in the last 5 years we've started finding
Hmm.
like hundreds of children's skeletons buried behind these former schools in
Yeah,
the
I
U.S. and
think
Canada.
yeah, in US and Canada. I'm gonna try and like link in the newsletter like an article covering some of this because I think this is like super, yeah, it is super important to understand. Like this is not just fantasy. This is not just the
Mm-hmm.
video game. Like, this is drawing from lived history that
Yeah.
we should not forget happened.
Yep.
um,
But you do pick up a friend.
yes,
What is it? Tax? Cax.
Cax, I think.
The who's gonna come from the Connect people with you, and
Hmm.
like, uh, first of all, what a fun, you mentioned the word foil, like what a fun foil to this
Yes.
gruff, terse old man is this like younger, like I don't know, like he has kind of a jovial air about him.
He's like super gung ho in terms of like, I'm gonna like do this for my people and we're gonna like go and destroy them. And your dude is kind of like, yo, we gotta like be a little bit smart about this. We gotta chill.
Yeah, I did not chill. I chose
Yeah.
not to chill. Basically you're going to go with him to the town of
Hmm.
Terminos, which seems to be like a fortification for the newcomers.
Hmm.
And I just decided to just murder everyone. So I
Did you
like
not do wait, did because I had like a thing where we had to like sneakily like stand by the tavern and wait for the right informant to come out. You didn't do any of that?
I did.
Oh,
The
okay.
second person that came out, I confronted. It was like a young newcomer,
Yes, yeah.
and that kicked off the murder battle, and it was just like me killing dozens and dozens of guys until I finally survived long enough that I could find a bar to crash in for the night with a person who's like on my side and also hates the newcomers.
I will say I had I waited until the third guy,
Okay.
who was like a general kind of sorts, who, or at least like a higher ranking officer, who came out, and then I did the same thing where it was
Okay, got
murder
it.
fest.
Okay, I'm glad I didn't miss out on too much.
Yeah. One thing or two things I wanted to point out, because throughout this, at least I wasn't entirely aware. I had like hints through as we were playing, but I still was unsure of if you were the same guy as the child you saw in Act 1. I think partially because I had read the Steam description and it was like, you've got multiple narratives that you're exploring. So I was like, oh, maybe this is the other person.
Mm.
So that also may be why I thought that. But in the Connect Forest, you are, or in the village, the city, there's an opportunity to purchase like tamales there. Did you engage with that at all? Did you get that?
No.
So there's a moment where you can like talk to a vendor and you see the tamales and it calls back to what your mother was preparing at the campfire
Mm.
in Act 1. And Tizo gets really emotional about it and is like, nope, you can't, you got to like put it down. Don't let anyone like, there's a
Whoa.
moment where very, very obviously you're like, I have to stop thinking about this.
Mm.
And so that for me was like, okay, I see the thread. This is actually the same person.
I'm
And
bummed that I
this,
missed that
yeah,
connection.
it was real because I was surprised. That speaking of surprises, that took me by surprise. And in that last battle, after you're done, you pick up a chunk of wood, and Tizo says, like, the guy, this general, he must have been whittling something. My dad used to whittle. And your dad was whittling an owl at the campfire. And so again, there's that callback. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
first time you see, I think, this character see the people that he has killed as a little bit more than just, you know, well, we all die, so whatever. Because
Wow.
at least that I can recall in this portion of the game.
That's it's like such a depth that I totally missed out on by not engaging with that. So
Mhm.
wow, that's really, really interesting. Hmm.
But yeah, after that, I also had the same thing. You pick up that wood thing. Your character's like, don't think about the past, just like keep going. Um, the music I wanted to shout out because there's this beautiful song that plays. I will link it in the newsletter. It got me a little bit choked up because I was
I
like,
agree.
you're like running through this village, and this is 8-bit pixel art, right? We're not seeing details, but I swear I could taste the dust. I felt like the exhaustion. I just everything combined where I wasn't seeing the pixels, I was seeing like the entirety of the story, and it was beautiful.
I agree. And it was like it's like in a game where the art is so, I'll use the word unrefined, but I don't mean unsophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
To have the music come through so
Oh
clearly with
yeah.
like modern recording stylings was just like, I don't know, it was just like a really powerful moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really cool. Um, and yeah, we end Act 2 in the bar with this stranger who's helping patch us up. Whew.
There's something very Boondock Saints about this game to me right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well that movie has aged. I haven't seen it in 25 years, but like the idea is just like, I'm just gonna go on a murder spree for
Mm-hmm.
anyone that I think is doing bad. And you
And it's tough because, like, knowing what we know about what happens to like
we know
his
how it ends.
people,
Yeah,
like we know how it ends, we know how it continues, and so it's like there is a part of me that is like there is this sense of justice,
I
but
agree.
it's
Yeah.
dampened by like my worry of the indiscriminate sort of like uh I guess this like single-mindedness of the vision
Mm,
that he has for what will be justice, I think is like I think I'm grappling with that. And I think it's really cool that the game is making me reconcile some of that because it's like, again, the Red Company is not good. Like
no,
what they are
yeah.
doing is bad. But at the same time, I'm like, these some of the bandits that we engage with, I'm like, I don't think they were Red Company. Did they deserve that? I don't know. And like I feel, it's making me feel complex things, which I always appreciate in a game.
It's like the fact that your character doesn't pause to reflect on this
Yeah.
forces you to. Like
Yeah.
the fact that like you are playing a pretty narrative driven game, but you don't ever reflect on your own violence, at least not really so far.
Mhm.
It kind of forces you to do that, which is
Yeah.
interesting. Like, I've played shoot 'em ups my whole life, and like you're not often, even when the character feels guilty about something, you're not often feeling it yourself the way I am
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. I really appreciate how it's making me uh think. And again, this like guilt mechanic. I'm very interested to see how it plays out through the end of the game because we don't know like what this guilt is going to do to us.
Hmm.
I don't know what happens in the next act and beyond, but like we don't know where this guilt will carry us and like if it will turn out that maybe this is for good and the burden that we are carrying is worth the payoff in the end. Maybe people will be protected who weren't, but at the same time I worry for this character and I just want him to be okay and I am nervous that he will not.
Just retire. Just retire, man. No, don't
No.
fight the good fight.
Yeah, fight the good fight, but
Bear the
maybe
guilt.
maybe think about it though. I don't know.
Love it.
um but yeah, so next week we will be discussing just act 3. We pushed through 2 acts this week to just fit it in the month, so it was a heftier bit. But I think Act 3 is going to be a little bit shorter. So yeah, Act 3, and yeah, I'm super excited. Would love to hear your thoughts on the game, how you're feeling about it so far. You can post in the Discord, you can leave a voicemail, you can send an email, all of the above. So yeah.
Let us know how you're dealing with the combat. Are you using those accessibility features?
Oh
Are
my
you trying to like
gosh.
really work through each battle one at a time? I'm curious to hear what the community's experience has been.
Yeah, I have been so stubborn, but I feel like
Classic. That sounds
probably
like
it
Jenny.
is. It is. I'm like, I just am a glutton for this kind of punishment. But I do think, I think your strategy is one I was considering adopting, and I think I might just for the sake of like being able to just get through the game a little faster because it takes me a long time for some of these battles.
I will say I'm doing a lot more of the side quests than normal because I'm
Mm,
fast forwarding through some of these battles.
that's
So
nice.
that's
Okay.
been like a nice trade off for me in this
Yeah.
one.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us here at Geeks and Grounds. As always, it's a pleasure to have you. I might recommend that as you consider your choices, you also think about how many ghosts will be accumulated behind you during your planning phase.
Oh my goodness. Hopefully not too many.
But maybe.
Oh God.
Bye.
Bye.